The airport is buzzing with energy. Travelers hurry through terminals, rolling suitcases clicking against the polished floors. Some look stressed, others excited. Among them is Marcus, a tall black man in his early 30s, dressed neatly in jeans and a hoodie. Marcus walks toward his gate, checking his phone. His flight is boarding soon. He had a long day, and all he wants is to sit back and enjoy his trip. Finally, the gate agent calls his boarding group. Marcus picks up his bag and steps onto the plane. The familiar scent of recirculated air and coffee greets him. He finds his row, 24A, a window seat, just how he likes it. But something's wrong. A woman, mid-50s, blonde, wearing oversized sunglasses and a designer scarf, is already sitting there. She looks comfortable, scrolling through her phone, completely unbothered. Marcus glances at his boarding pass. 24A. He looks at the row number again. 24A. This is definitely his seat. He clears his throat and speaks politely. "Excuse me, I think you're in my seat." The woman barely looks up. She adjusts her scarf and keeps scrolling. "No, I don't think so," she says casually. Marcus furrows his brow. Maybe she misread her ticket. "I have 24A, window seat," he explains, holding up his boarding pass. This time she sighs loudly, finally looking at him. "I'm already sitting here," she says. "Just take another seat. It's not a big deal." The tension in the air thickens. Nearby passengers glance over, sensing something's off. Marcus remains calm, but he's not about to let this slide. Marcus smiles politely. Maybe she just needs a little push. "I understand," he says. "But this is my assigned seat. If you check your ticket, I think you might be in a different one." The woman, Karen, finally sighs and glances at her phone, but she doesn't make a move. "It's just a seat," she says dismissively. "There are plenty of others." Marcus glances around. The plane is nearly full. Switching seats isn't an option. He keeps his tone calm but firm. "Ma'am, I paid for this seat. I'd really appreciate it if you could check your ticket." Karen shakes her head. "I need extra space," she says. "My seat was in the middle and I can't sit there. I have a medical condition." Marcus blinks. A medical condition? She looks perfectly fine. A few passengers murmur, watching the exchange. Marcus gestures to the flight attendant walking down the aisle. "Excuse me," he says. "We have a seating issue here." The flight attendant, a young woman with a professional smile, stops beside them. "What's the problem?" Karen speaks up before Marcus can. "He's trying to take my seat," she says, shaking her head dramatically. The flight attendant looks confused. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass?" Karen shifts in her seat, clearly annoyed. She doesn't reach for her ticket. "I just told you, I need this seat. I get anxious sitting in the middle. He's a young man. He can sit anywhere." Marcus exhales slowly. This is unbelievable. The flight attendant remains professional. "I understand, ma'am, but we need to follow assigned seating." Karen crosses her arms. "So move him." Passengers raise their eyebrows. Someone whispers, "Wow, the entitlement." Marcus stays calm, but now it's clear. She isn't just refusing. She feels entitled to his seat. The flight attendant gives her one last chance. "Ma'am, if this isn't your seat, you will need to move." Karen stares back, unmoving. This is far from over. The flight attendant waits, expecting Karen to check her ticket. But Karen doesn't move. Instead, she scoffs. "I don't need to show my ticket. I already told you, I need this seat." The flight attendant's professional smile tightens. "Ma'am, airline policy requires passengers to sit in their assigned seats. If there's a medical issue, we can check if any accommodations are available, but you have to show your ticket first." Karen huffs loudly. Unbelievable. She digs into her designer handbag, moving things around unnecessarily, taking her time. Passengers shift in their seats, watching. Marcus stays calm, arms crossed, waiting. Finally, Karen pulls out her crumpled ticket and shoves it at the flight attendant. She looks at it, then at Karen. Ma'am, your ticket says 24C. That's an aisle seat, not the window. Karen waves a hand dismissively. Close enough. The flight attendant keeps her voice even. No, ma'am, it's not. He has 24A. That is his assigned seat. Karen leans back in her stolen seat. I'm already sitting here. Why make a fuss? Just move him to another seat. A few passengers let out small gasps. Others shake their heads. Marcus exhales. This isn't a request. It's my seat. The flight attendant nods firmly. Ma'am, you need to move, now. Karen stays put. I'm not moving. The attendant's patience wears thin. If you refuse to comply, I'll have to escalate this to the pilot. Karen crosses her arms. Go ahead. The attendant nods. She turns and heads to the cockpit. Passengers whisper. Marcus stays silent, waiting. Karen smirks, acting like she's won, but she has no idea what's coming. Minutes later, the flight attendant returns, this time with another crew member. Ma'am, the second attendant says, this is your last chance to move willingly. Karen leans back, sighing dramatically. This is harassment. I feel threatened. Marcus blinks. Threatened? I haven't even raised my voice. Karen nods aggressively. Exactly. You're trying to intimidate me. A man in the next row chuckles. Lady, just move already. Karen gasps. Excuse me? This is discrimination. The murmurs in the cabin grow louder. A woman nearby mutters, Oh, she's pulling that card now. Karen presses a hand to her chest, breathing heavily. I have anxiety. This is making me uncomfortable. I need space. The flight attendant doesn't budge. You'll feel a lot more comfortable in your assigned seat. Karen clenches her jaw. I paid for this flight. I have rights. The attendant tilts her head. And so does he. Karen crosses her arms, refusing to move. That's when the captain's voice comes over the speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a minor seating issue that needs resolving before takeoff. We appreciate your patience. Passengers glance around. A seating issue? Everyone knows what that really means. Moments later, the pilot himself steps out of the cockpit. The air in the cabin shifts. Karen's face goes pale. The pilot, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes, walks down the aisle. His presence changes everything. Passengers sit up straighter. Conversations hush. He stops beside the flight attendant and looks directly at Karen. Good evening, ma'am. I understand we have a problem? Karen tilts her chin up. Yes, this man is making a scene over a seat. The pilot raises an eyebrow. Ma'am, I was informed that you're sitting in the wrong seat. Karen scoffs. It's just a seat. The pilot nods. Exactly. So why not move to your assigned one? Karen blinks. That wasn't the response she expected. She huffs, shaking her head. I have anxiety. I can't sit in the middle. The pilot's expression remains unreadable. Ma'am, do you have a medical note requesting special seating? Karen stammers. I shouldn't need one. It's just a preference. The pilot nods slowly. Understood. But preferences don't override assigned seating. Karen crosses her arms. So move him. Gasps spread across the cabin. The pilot's eyes narrow slightly. Why would I move him when he's in the correct seat? Karen hesitates. Her confidence wavers. The pilot takes a deep breath, then looks around the cabin. Folks, I want to make something clear. Our airline respects all passengers equally. That means assigned seats must be followed. No one is above the rules. Karen shifts uncomfortably. Her face turns red. The pilot continues. We cannot and will not accommodate seat theft. If you refuse to comply, I'll have to take further action. Passengers stare, waiting. Karen grips her armrest. She knows she's lost. After a long pause, she grabs her bag and stands up. A few people quietly clap. Marcus finally sits down, sighing in relief. Karen stomps over to her actual seat, fuming. The pilot nods at Marcus. Thank you for your patience. Then, without another word, he walks back to the cockpit. The flight attendant smiles politely at Karen. Enjoy your flight, ma'am. Karen glares but says nothing. The plane finally prepares for takeoff. The plane is now quiet. The tension in the air is still thick, but the situation seems to be resolved. Marcus settles into his seat, finally able to relax. He buckles his seatbelt, adjusting his bag under the seat. Karen, now sitting in 24C, stares straight ahead, arms crossed. She is clearly fuming. Then, the pilot's voice comes through the intercom again. Ladies and gentlemen, before we take off, I'd like to say a few words. Passengers perk up, sensing something interesting is about to happen. The pilot continues. Air travel is a privilege that comes with rules. One of those rules is simple. Respect assigned seating. If every passenger decided to sit where they wanted, there would be chaos. That's why our crew works hard to ensure that everyone follows the rules fairly. Some passengers smile, others nod in agreement. Karen shifts uncomfortably, realizing this is directed at her. The pilot's voice remains calm but firm. We do not tolerate entitlement. We do not tolerate seat theft. And we will not allow any passenger to demand special treatment at the expense of another. Our goal is a smooth and fair journey for all. A few people clap softly. Others exchange knowing looks. Karen turns bright red. The pilot finishes his announcement. Thank you for your patience. We appreciate your cooperation. Now, let's have a safe and enjoyable flight. With that, the intercom clicks off. Marcus smirks slightly, looking out the window. Karen stays silent. She just got publicly called out, and there's nothing she can do about it. The plane's engines rumble, preparing for takeoff. The flight attendants do their final checks, walking down the aisle. As one passes Marcus, she smiles subtly and whispers, I'm sorry about that. You handled it well. Marcus nods, appreciating it. Thank you. Nearby passengers exchange quiet comments. She really thought she could get away with it. The entitlement was insane. Glad the pilot said something. Karen keeps her eyes locked on the tray table in front of her. She knows people are talking about her. She pulls out her phone, pretending to scroll, but her hands are tense. One man across the aisle leans toward Marcus. Hey man, that was ridiculous, but you kept your cool. Respect. Marcus chuckles. Didn't really have a choice. The man nods. Well, at least you got your seat back. That pilot wasn't playing around. Marcus glances at Karen. She still hasn't said a word. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't even look in his direction. But her posture says it all. She lost, and everyone knows it. The plane starts taxiing to the runway. The soft hum of the engines grows louder. Marcus leans back, finally able to relax. The sun is setting outside the window, casting a golden glow over the clouds. For the first time since boarding, he feels at ease. Karen remains silent, staring straight ahead. She doesn't complain. She doesn't argue. She knows she's been put in her place. The plane lifts off smoothly, climbing higher into the sky. The tension from earlier fades away. The journey continues. Marcus lets it go. He got his seat back. He didn't have to fight for it, because the truth spoke for itself. And Karen? Well, she learned a very public lesson today. A lesson she won't soon forget.